Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
A beautiful, clean river doesn't start here. It starts here. What we put down our storm drains goes straight from our streets.
General Government Committee of October 22nd to order and invite roll call.
Chair Mulhern.
Here.
Member Norvell.
Here.
If we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We are going to start today's meeting with agenda item 2A, discussion of possible action including direction to staff regarding the development of Mendocino County's 2026 legislative platform. We're going to do a little audio work here quickly. Yes? So each year, the Board of Supervisors prepares a legislative platform so that our legislative analysts and our executive office can quickly send letters to our legislative representatives at the state and federal government with the signature of the chair. At any point, the legislative report or the legislative platform can be updated. It is a standing item on every Board of Supervisors agenda, but we're going to use this opportunity to talk about some updates and some red lines for the 2026 year, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Hansen.
Good morning, Chair Mulhern, Supervisor Norvell, Deputy CEO Steve Duncliffe, and County Consul Scott. Kelly Hansen with the Executive Office. Pursuant to County Policy 19, the Board of Supervisors adopts an annual legislative platform reflecting the county's priorities for legislative advocacy, state and federal funding, and issues of interest to local government. On September 9th, 2025, the Board of Supervisors referred the development of the 2026 legislative platform to the General Government Standing Committee pursuant to the Board of Supervisors Rules of Procedure. The Executive Office brings the draft 2026 legislative platform to the GGC today and requests direction and input from the Standing Committee on legislative priorities for the 2026 legislative platform.
Thank you. So I think that what I'd like to do is start off with cannabis because they're here in the room. And I'd like to invite Sarah McBurney up to just explain some of the changes that are in the cannabis section of the platform, and then we can get into the other red lines throughout the document.
Morning, Supervisors. Sarah McBurney, the Mendocino Cannabis Department. So before you today, we have suggested edits to the ledge platform that really match where we are programmatically, both through the county and state level. again, to Chair Mulhern, your introduction to the Ledge platform, changes can be made anytime. So if at any point we saw the need to proceed with additional changes, we could do that. And really, because we are now through our backlog and really operating as a regulated licensing department, we're working more towards education of the public and also kind of the expectation of what compliance looks like moving forward. So that's really what kind of the suggested edits we have here today kind of outline where we are.
Supervisor Norvell, did you have any questions? Yeah, I wanted to just thank you for your work. I'm hoping there are some items within the platform already as they exist, but one of the things that I see that we could really use support from the state on is educating the applicants so that they understand what their rights and responsibilities are, but also what their opportunities are. We, for many decades, had a very robust illegal market, and I think the people that are in the legal market continue to struggle with navigating the system. And I understand the County of Mendocino doesn't have capacity to educate in the same way that the state might be able to, as well as those are state laws and policies that we're expecting them to follow. In the past, the county has received grant funds to help educate and work with our small cultivators on their business plans. And so do you feel like there is, or I guess it's a question to Kelly and Sarah, do you feel like we have enough in there with just the advocacy with the state that you could send a letter if the need arose, or do you want us to add something more specific in?
We could absolutely explore the idea of adding something more specific for education at the state level and state regulations. I think perhaps there is language in here that we could utilize to support that. However, if we wanted something more specific, we would be happy to explore that and add that.
Okay, that would be great. I mean, we have a couple of things because it does say, we're advocating for direct consumer sales, which is something that comes up often. It talks about the origin petitions, but also I just think that there are some cultivators that fall out of those sort of classifications. So just want to make sure that we're trying to include everybody that's in the program.
I believe too, if we added a more generic just education of state regulations to local cultivators, that could perhaps suffice as well. I think what we have in here is pretty definitive. And so the more kind of generalized education topic that we can add in there, we could definitely cater to individual needs based off that general education request and advocacy here.
Great. Supervisor Norvell, is it fine with you if we provide that direction?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I think we can turn it over to you, Supervisor Norvell, for any changes or questions, concerns that you had.
Yeah, so thank you. I did look under public safety, and the only thing, I did see a few things that came close, but I didn't see anything specific to funding for Prop 36.
I'll read what it says. Advocate for a sustainable new state funding source dedicated to both treatment and accountability, ensuring counties can effectively cover all implementation and ongoing costs associated with Prop 36.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Want more than that?
No, that'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I think, Kelly, if you want to just highlight, I mean, obviously there were some changes in grammar and sort of some small changes like that, but can you highlight some of the other red lines that I think it's important for the public and the other board members to know?
Would you like me to just start from the top and go through?
Yeah, I don't think we have to go through each line item, but maybe just like each section, why it was changed. And I do have a couple of specific call outs as well. Maybe I should say those first as well, but we can get there. In particular, the Great Redwood Trail was struck, and that was a surprising change to me. And I also want to make sure that we're advocating for as low cost as possible for farmers market vendors so that they can get their product to market low cost, low regulations, And also, there's been some changes in micro enterprise and home-based businesses, and their ability to market products. And I think that that's important in today's economy, that we're making sure we're advocating for people to have essentially a side hustle to be able to support their families.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, one more. And the market match, EBT market match. And while we may be losing some funding from the feds, I think it's important that we continue to advocate for that. That's, again, connecting the economic development of farmers markets with the community and food security.
Okay. It sounds like we should start with the economic community development section then. So that section, the introductory paragraph was just edited for clarity and grammar. There were a few bullet points here that our Economic Development Division analyst added. The bullet points here were removed for redundancy with the climate section, as we already had those items mentioned in that section. So these are just redundant bullet points because we're saying the same thing in that section. And this item was edited for clarity. The items that you mentioned for the farmers market, the market match, which has been in jeopardy in the last 2 budget cycles with the state, I would say would also follow under this section, as well as the farmers market for low barriers to distribution in the home business laws could theoretically also fall under this section, which we could find language and insert as well. And then there was some additional language that was added here by our Economic Development Division analyst. There was some question from the from the executive office about the language for the item for the Redwood Trail, but it can certainly be included at the will of the board going forward. So that is we can reject the change and have it included going forward.
Supervisor Norvell, do you have any objections? The Great Road Trail recently received a promise, I suppose, in the state budget of about $50 million. But I think as far as economic development inland, our opportunity for outdoor recreational tourism really lies with that project. And we have 2 board members that serve on the board of that project, so I don't know why we would remove our advocacy for it.
Did I miss the reasoning for removing it?
There was just some question about the language around the item and whether that wanted to be a high priority advocacy item going forward.
Repeat that last part for me.
There was some questions whether this wanted to be a priority item going forward for advocacy and the language of the item. So it wanted to come forward as something for discussion, whether we wanted to keep it or not.
And this will go to the board? Yeah, I'm fine with adding it then.
Okay. Can we talk about the climate change section? And if you wouldn't mind, just when you have the page number, in case anyone's following along at home.
So we're going to skip to page 11. So we're going to go up in the document. This is probably one of the areas that had the most change in the document. The intent in the area is still the same. The language has, actually, nope, sorry.
Page 13.
13, sorry.
That's okay.
My written document is different. The intent is still the same. The language has changed significantly, though. The thinking here and the direction I received is that we want to moderate the language such that it does not raise flags with the current administration and jeopardize federal funding for any of the programs that the county currently receives. There are certain keywords that have been brought to our attention that raise flags with the current administration. So we want to be very careful and measured with the language that we use. It doesn't mean that things are not a priority for the county or that we are changing intentions. It just means that we are being very careful with the language that we use going forward.
Thank you. Any questions on this section,
No,
Supervisor Norvell?
I get it.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the next section, the disaster prevention recovery section?
Sure, this came from our Chief Recovery and Resiliency Officer, Travis Kilmer. He did extensive research looking into the language around projects and priorities and updated the language for this section, which needed some updating. You'll notice that it is very similar to the previous language, but it is just putting in kind of a new urgency around some of the projects and the priorities for the department, and really looking at the role of the county and the proper role of the county when it comes to disaster and preparedness. It's talking a lot about, supporting proper regulations, making sure the county gets reimbursed in a timely way, and promoting, kind of a streamlining of all of those systems and processes, insurance reform, and the type of projects that will benefit this county going forward.
Okay. I didn't see anything in there that I particularly wanted to change, Supervisor Norvell.
Same, thank you.
And I think then we're on to the COVID-19 was removed, and then can you just share a little bit about if there were to be future
Of course.
disasters, where that kind of platform is?
Of course. So we took the language that existed in the previous legislative platform about preparedness and providing for future epidemiological services and put that in the public health section, which we felt was a more appropriate location for planning for future epidemics, as we are quite a number of years out from COVID-19, its response.
Thank you. And in the natural resources section?
I did not receive any comments from departments on this section. The only changes are spelling out acronyms and one comment here for removal of the word climate change, and it was an edit from the executive office, actually.
Okay.
One item here.
And then Supervisor Norvell, did you want to touch on there is a section for oppose any new or expanded offshore oil and gas drilling along the California coastline,
yes.
And support legislative efforts to protect the ocean and coastal resources. It's my understanding that the board has advocated in opposition with a letter, so having this in the legislative platform would enable us to react more quickly to that, but you're the coastal representative, so I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, Supervisor Williams and I addressed this in a resolution earlier, so I think this path would, like you said, make it a lot easier and faster to send the letter.
Okay, and then we get to our agricultural section, and I'd like to probably thank Angela Goodwin, our department head, per ag for, it seems as though, the inclusion of some new language may have been from her, and we appreciate department heads' engagement in the legislative platform. They're the field experts in their topics, so that's helpful to the board. Do you have any questions about the agricultural section? Okay. And if we could go on to economic and community development, can I just check with the clerk? Do we have any public members online?
We have one member that I don't recognize, but I believe it could be staff. Guard
Okay.
C.
Oh, she is staff. Yes. Okay. And we have no members of the public in the audience, which is why I'm not calling for public comment yet, but I'll do it before we wrap up here. Okay. So economic and community development. If you could please talk a little bit about the changes.
Sure. As noted earlier when we touched on this section, there are some changes from our Economic and Development Division analyst. Just updating language to support some of the projects that we currently have and partnerships around rural business economic development and infrastructure needs. And again, there is that removal for duplication in the climate action. And then there's the update and clarity on the CDBG item. I made that change as I managed the CDBG item myself. I wanted to make sure that that item was as clear as possible, as that project is quite complicated. And then there was some additional language added by our Economic Development Division analyst around tourism and outdoor education initiatives for rural development, which would support some of the initiatives that they are working on and partnerships, as we wrote a grant on that subject this year. Again, that's what this whole section is in regards to. And then there is one item here at the end, which was submitted by Animal Care Services, our director from Animal Care Services, to advocate for the needs of spay and neuter clinics as well.
Thank you. I do really think again, I'll just repeat myself, it was really important that our department heads weigh in, so I appreciate that effort. We already discussed cannabis. So if we can talk about public safety, and did any department heads or division reps weigh in on this one?
Yes, there was some edits here that were provided by Chief Locatelli of Probation. He provided some helpful language regarding mandates and flexibility, as well as some language around Proposition 36.
Thank you. And I know that there's been some shifts both in state government temperature, I suppose, as well as the federal government temperature about public safety. And, in addition to Prop 36, we have some pretty clear direction from the federal administration about handling some crimes and et cetera. So hopefully this legislative platform meets our goals in a way that aligns with that, so that we don't lose any federal funding, because that is a consequence of not aligning with that. Supervisor Norvell, did you have anything else to add? Okay. And the human services section on page 29.
So we also have some updated language under human services. We met with the executive office met with our lobbyist in September to discuss the legislative platform. They suggested that we include some language about how recent policy changes will disrupt the delivery of social services, which we drafted some language, which the Director of Social Services reviewed and approved, and we included in this section.
Thank you. That would lead us to the public health section. It looks like there's just some minor changes in that addition of the epidemiology section that was moved.
Yes, the only changes were spelling out acronyms and then adding the items from the COVID-19 into this section.
Thank you. That would leave us to the behavioral health section, and the request for the state for funding for the behavioral health wing of the jail has been struck. I don't exactly think that we were made whole, but I guess we've decided we're not advocating for additional funds from the state.
With the completion of the facility here expected in 2026, it's hard to advocate for construction costs. If we wanted to look at rewarding it for another piece of the ask, we could definitely, at the discretion of the board, look at a different way to do that language.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
Yeah, so the part that was redlined doesn't mention construction. It just says the behavioral health wing of the new jail. So I would personally be fine with leaving it in there because we are going to need some help with staffing.
Yes, I would as well. If we can unstrike it, I suppose. And then the section on homelessness.
So there is some language here that was provided by our senior program manager with special projects team in the Department of Social Services.
Okay, and just for the public that may be watching and not following along, we're talking about streamlined HAP grant, homeless housing and assistance prevention grant programs, funding, supporting flexibility locally, which is something that we generally advocate for, local control and local flexibility.
Yes, this is a major source of funding for that program that looks to be in possible jeopardy going forward from the state. There's a lot of dialogue about round 7. Will it happen? How will it happen? What it will look like? There's quite a lot of debate around HAP 7 and even if there will be anything after round 7.
Thank you. And then also under federal action, there is advocacy for supporting retaining HUD rental subsidy. That is something that prevents homelessness. So it makes sense to me that we would continue to advocate for that. And we made it all the way through. 28 minutes. It might be a record. I don't know. Supervisor Norvell, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I don't, thank you.
We have no public in the room. Is there any public online? If you're calling in online, you can raise your hand on the Zoom platform.
Seeing none.
Thank you for that. So the motion would be to provide direction, which I believe that we have done. Do we need to have a vote, Lily? Or Charlotte? We just provided it.
Charlotte Scott, County Council. It looks like you've provided direction to staff. The agenda isn't seeking the recommended action is provide direction to staff. I think I would say you've provided direction to staff as to appropriate red lines during the meeting and recommend that the item be placed for the board's consideration at a future meeting.
So moved.
Second? You want us to vote, Lily? By the button or?
I can do a roll call vote.
You can do a roll call.
Chair Mulhern,
Yes.
Member Norvell.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Perfect. All right, on to item 3A, the approval of the minutes from the June 25th, 2025 regular meeting. Supervisor Norvell, any changes, questions, comments?
No, I'm fine with the minutes.
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on the minutes? Seeing none, I will accept a motion for approval.
Through the chair, if I may, just for the record, there was no comment online.
Thank you.
So moved?
Second. Roll call, please.
Member Norvell,
Yes.
Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Item 3B is public expression. At this time, members of the public can provide comments on items of interest that are not on the agenda. There are no members of the public present in the room. Are there any members of the public raising their hands online?
Seeing none.
Thank you. That will move on to announcements. I don't have any announcements. Supervisor Norvell? With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.